Hey everybody, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to create some mini abstract paintings, and I have masked my paper into different sections. This is, I think, a 30 by 40 centimeter watercolor paper pad, and I used some masking tape to just make different fields to draw and paint in. I'm starting by scribbling a Derwent Inktense pencil all over my page. I think it's a brownish orangish color. I can't tell you which exact color that is. Might be the burnt orange or baked earth. I can't remember. And I did this absolutely blind. I did not look on my page. I just scribbled down these marks. And I think I do the same thing with my next material, which is a Neocolor. Could be the apricot, very light, reddish tinted color. And I'm doing the same here. I do not have a look on my page at this stage. That just makes sure that I don't control everything. And often an abstract piece turns out a bit looser and better when you don't think about it too much. So that's a good way to start such an abstract process. Next, I'm grabbing a different Derwent Inktense pencil, and this time I had a look on my page, but I tried to stay loose anyways, and I had a look because I didn't want to mix in that it's kind of an emerald green or aquamarine color. I don't want to mix that into the other scribbles too much because that could create a muddy color in the end, and I just wanted to have this separated. So I had a look on my page this time, but I hold that pencil quite loose so that I don't make that I make loose marks and free marks, I would say. I'm now going in with some wet material. I'm using my watercolor palette today, and I spritz some colors or all the colors with water to make them get activated a little bit easier, and then I'm going to just put some paint down, and that makes the Derwent Inktense pencils melt into the water because they are water soluble, and that creates some interesting effects. And the Neocolors are also water soluble, but you can see that if you don't brush really hard on them, they create kind of a resist against your watercolors, and that can also be a really interesting effect. I started with that blue color, could be Prussian blue. And you can see I'm holding the brush quite at the end to really make sure I don't have control on it. And I put down the paint. I try to put some paint into every of my panels, and I don't overdo it. Usually this way of working always keeps an ugly stage until you remove the masking tape. But that is, I think, a really good process to loosen up and to learn to trust the process, because usually there is always something within these panels that turns out quite nice and can lead you to another work you can do in the future by referencing one of these images. I didn't have any plans in mind for this page, whether the composition or the colors. I just started intuitively, and I'm adding colors on the go. So I just would decide what color would match my page, and then I will add it. Sometimes I have a color palette in mind before I start. That makes things a little bit easier. But I think by not having a plan, you sometimes get really interesting surprises and color combos you never had thought of. Here I'm turning my page. I do this a lot when making abstract work, especially when I'm working on a paper pad. Turning the page around just gives you a different direction of your mark making. And later you can just see that you can't see that one direction because you turned the paper. I'm not sure if this makes sense, but it's just, we have a way to make the marks on our paper, and often we don't think about it or change this. And by just switching the paper around, you automatically change your way of mark making on the page. Here I'm going in with a complementary kind of color. Could be a raw sienna, I think. One of my favorite colors. I use it a lot in my work, and I love it together with a turquoisey kind of blue. If you are enjoying that video, it would be really nice if you leave a comment, like the video, and of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. That will really help my channel grow on YouTube, and that's important for me because I'm doing that full time at the moment, and yeah, the more views I get, the better it is. And I also have linked up the blog post for these abstracts in the video description, so you can jump over to my blog, have a look at the finished paintings. But of course, I will share these at the end of the video as well. But that's just maybe a good thing to have a calmer, closer look on the work. You can see I have added in some pink. It's the Opera Rose, I think, from Micello, which is kind of a neon pink color. I love this combined with a raw sienna and a turquoise. I think I often intuitively would go towards these colors, and yeah, it's just something I use quite often in my work without planning ahead. I now took out some acrylic gouache, I think in white. I wanted to add a paint layer into the work. I really like white space, but I didn't want to have the white space from the paper. I really like when I create some layers in the abstract work, and therefore I'm using just the white paint. You can use white acrylics instead. This is acrylic gouache. Acrylic paint will work in the same way. Acrylic gouache dries a little bit more matte. It's good for an art journal because then the pages don't stick together like they do when you use acrylics. But in this case, it's not an art journal. Acrylics would have been just fine. If you are interested in some more mixed media videos and intuitive painting processes, you might want to check out my monthly membership. I paused during August, but there are already around 60 videos up to watch instantly, and I will be back in September with at least 2 videos per month, but usually there are some bonus videos in between, sharing an art supply haul or a sketchbook flip through or a book flip through or any type of technique idea I want to share. So in case you're interested in that, feel free to check it out, and if you have any questions, just leave me a comment. I'm now scratching into the wet paint with a Derwent Inktense pencil. Could be that greenish one I've used in the beginning. And I make some marks into the wet paint. That's a really nice technique to add interesting layers and just different marks than the ones you already have. time to let things dry now, and I'm coming back with some flash paint, and I put that into a little needle bottle, I would say. Not sure if this was a good idea, because you have to shake it very, very, very well when you want to use it, because it separates from the binder sometimes. But I don't really like the glass jars the flash paints come in, and I really like the way of application possibility I have here with that bottle. And I'm adding in that color just a little bit with my fingers. It's kind of an emerald or viridian green. I let that spread dry again, and here I'm back. And now it's time to do some mark making, and I'm using Neocolors, and I just scribble in some of the Neocolor. It's the greenish turquoise, I think, onto the panels. I just have a look and I decide if that might look good or not in the end. We will see that. It's really hard to say that now, because I think everything looks like a mess at this stage. But I promise you, it's a really fun process, and to see the finished results at the end is quite interesting and makes me usually really happy. For me, that's the most fun and playful part, I would say, making all these kind of marks and patterns on a piece, whether it's an art journal page or like this, an abstract spread. I think that's just fun, and you can experiment with so many different materials and mark making ways and patterns. And I think that's just so relaxing, like just, I would say, like painting mandalas or something like that. That's a really relaxing process. I decided to go in with some acrylic ink. I believe I might make some splatters and also scribble down some of the ink into some areas. You can use that to cover things up that you think aren't nice. Sometimes there are areas where I say that looks a bit weird or not very considered and or maybe mixed up too much, or yeah, then I would just cover that up with a layer of paint, and that's what I'm doing here. And you can see I also make some splatters, which brings in some highlights and yeah, more interest and layers on the piece, and that will increase the depth. Yes, and now it's time to reveal what we have done, and that's, I would say, the most amazing part of the process. You get some really nice finished results there. There might be some that don't look good, but there will for sure be a few that you really like and that you then maybe can use for a bigger spread, for a bigger painting, just for the composition, or you really like a certain area that you have created and you can use this in your future work. If you have trouble removing the washi tape, you can use a heat tool and warm it a little bit, and it will come off more easily. As I said, I have linked up the blog post for these finished paintings. I will now cut them apart and show them to you here in the video, but you can have a look at the blog post. It's always also interesting to make the decision whether you want to turn the paintings into the other direction. I usually try different things out and then I decide what I like the most. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you like it, don't forget to leave a comment, and I hope we will see us next time. I wish you a wonderful, I think it should be Friday, so I wish you a wonderful weekend. I am on holidays already and I have prepared all these videos, and I will be back in September, but I might have a video for you next week as well. Yeah, I hope we will see us then. Bye.